For today's review, we are looking at the Mcfarlane Collector Edition Firestorm. Now, who is Firestorm for those who have never heard of this character before? Well, the included data profile card, as usual, should give us that information. And as you can see, there's this nice comic book art of what the character looks like in the source material that they are taking inspiration from. And I'll talk more about this after I read the back. In that source material is Crisis on Infinite Earths, and his real name is Ronnie Raymond and Martin Stein. Ronnie Raymond and Professor Martin Stein are two very different personalities. One is the epitome of youthful exuberance, the other rational thought personified. But when merged into a single entity, these opposites complement each other's strengths as Firestorm, the nuclear man. Firestorm is a living nuclear reaction and one of the mightiest heroes in the world. So that's a pretty good read-up on who Firestorm is. One thing that they did not write on the back is how they got their powers, unfortunately. And I don't remember because it's been so long since I looked into the origins of this character. All right, so let's talk about the card again. As you know with collector editions, there's always a platinum. The platinum version of this figure is painted in this color scheme, which I unfortunately do not have a copy of. And maybe my memories could be off, so do correct me in the comments if you are more familiar with Crisis, because it's been a long time since I've read Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I don't really remember every single thing that happens in that story, outside of the fact that there are some big moments, and then of course the ending, right, where they resolve the conflict, they pretty much reset everything, right? So I am assuming that this costume is what he wears in Crisis, while the regular one is the traditional costume that he wears most of the time, that we see in most depictions. So, yeah. But maybe he does wear this and he changes into this. I don't know. I don't remember. It's been too long since I read Crisis. So if you do know, do chime in the comments. All right. In terms of accessories, what does a $30 collector edition figure come with? And this figure was part of the second wave of collector editions. So this was still during that period where, of course, the card stand is included. And most of the figures did not really include much in accessories. However, for Firestorm, he did have a little bit more accessories, if you want to put it that way, in the box. Not particularly like effect parts. Well, you can say that they're effect parts, but they are also interchangeable. Hands, such as the two fist hands that are on fire, right? These are included. And then you also get this hand gesture, which is him shooting flames. So another effect style hand that can go on the figure. Really neat. You also get a open hand that's on fire. I don't know what this is. Like he's grabbing somebody, maybe. And of course, he also has hands that are not on fire. So Firestorm does fly. And he does have flight hands. That's what I like to call these. I really don't know what these hands are for. And if you want fist hands that are not on fire, like the ones that I have on the figure right now, you can also use these two pairs of fist hands that are not on fire, that are equipped for both arms. So that is nice that they included that as well. And the last two hands that you get are a regular grabbing hand without fire, and my favorite hand gesture, the pointing finger hand. So he can point at you or point at somebody else if you want them to point at somebody. So there's that. And that is all the accessories that he has. Now, does that equate to $30? No. It would have been nice if they gave him some more fire effect pieces that could be, you know, on the figure. I'm just saying, like, there could have been more. So no, not worth the $30 price. All right, let's talk about aesthetics. One thing you may notice already right off the bat is the color of the yellow. So if you've seen this character in many depictions, you would know that his yellow is quite bright and vibrant looking. It's not this mustard sort of color. And it's so weird because they've used brighter yellows before on other figures. Like, let's take the figure that we're going to look at in the next video, Kid Flash here. Look at how bright that yellow is. I don't know why they opted for this mustard yellow sort of deal. It's really weird. It doesn't really fit. Unless there is like a comic depiction of him where his yellow is not as bright that I'm not aware of. But in most images I've seen for him, it's always in that brighter yellow. So, I don't know. Really weird. But nevertheless, I mean, it's still yellow, still red, still white. So he's still in that color, right, of what he wears usually. So, but I don't really like the mustard yellow because it kind of looks off. As for his head sculpt, I think they did a fantastic job with that head sculpt. The face is pretty good. He's like really serious, like he's about to throw down with somebody. So yeah, pretty cool. And not bad. All right. Now, let's talk about the things that I dislike, because this is another part I don't like about this figure. Is the way that they painted the fire effects. So, you know, when he's in Firestorm form, the two of them when they fuse, you know, his head is always on fire, right? As you can see right there. Well, they could have painted this hairpiece, right, this fire, with more of a contrast of paint to make it look like fire. The problem I have with this is the fact that it's just one orange color. There's no reds, there's no yellow, there's no other colors like kind of like mixing in, so it kind of creates this contrast of what flames look like, because there's many ways that flames are painted in, you know, other figures that have had fire effects, or even in like artwork like this on the card where you see that there's a contrast of colors, right? So I think they could have done something like that with the hair, and also, you know, these fire effects that are for the figure, because when you keep it all in the same color, it doesn't really look like fire, does it? It looks really plain. It looks really boring. So I don't know why they just said screw it and just paint it this way. Because one of the things that I remember from an interview a long time ago when he talked about collector edition, or he was asked about it, he said that, yeah, it's more expensive, but the paint is better. They're painted the same way as usual, so I don't really see like what the improvements are. And some of these figures do still suffer from pin QC. So, you know, I'm just saying. Like, I still like this figure, don't get me wrong. I like this Firestorm figure, but I really think that it does deserve some sort of custom. And if you're a customizer, oh yeah, you definitely would want to touch up the fire effects up here with like different colors. And maybe repaint the yellow if you don't like the mustard yellow. And even maybe repaint the red if you don't like this bright red. So this is definitely a figure that is definitely worth customizing, in my opinion. So, in terms of his like Firestorm Matrix thing here, yeah, it's no different from how they done it in the past. So a previous figure that we did look at also had that Firestorm thing, as you can see, right? And I don't blame them for not being able to make it look like it glows or anything, because that part is hard to do in, you know, an action figure, right? So still good enough. I think the straps here are still good enough. But no way is this a $30 figure, okay? Everything just feels like your normal DC Multiverse figure, just overpriced. And that's the part that I don't like. So, luckily I didn't pay full price for this, but, you know, it shouldn't be $30, right? So, and as for everything else going on, yeah, pretty much like a lot of reused parts as well, because like this waist area, these legs, they're definitely reused. Like, I've recognized some of these pieces. I don't remember where they're from or which figure they're taking it from, but none of this is new sculpt except for like the head sculpt and maybe this top part with the torso up here. But other pieces are definitely either retooled or reused. So that is basically the aesthetics of this figure. Like, there's nothing else that I can really talk about because it's very simple. And this leads me to articulation, which leads me to something else that I don't like. I know I'm sounding very negative, but when you make a figure, you got to make it the best, right? Like, some of us have been waiting for like a Firestorm figure for a long time because this is probably the only Firestorm we're ever going to get. Unless he makes the Injustice 2 version or any other iteration of Firestorm, which I don't know if he will, right? It's really random. So with the legs, he can definitely spread out a little bit. So he can, oh, there we go. Right? So that's not bad. But if you want him to kick out, that's all you're going to get. Like, that's not good because this piece right here, I don't know why. Usually it's like soft PVC, right? But it's really stiff on this guy. Like, not as stiff as the steel figure, but that's all you're getting when it comes to kicking. And that's not, that's not good. Like, compared to like, some of the other figures that, they've made in the past that do kick out better. It's just weird how this one doesn't. Like, let's bring in, we're going to bring them in for comparison. But when you look at like Deathstorm, yeah, you're not going to have him kick out too high, but like that's still a better kick range of motion with the legs than, what you're getting with this guy. So that's not good. In terms of his double joint, that still works fine. In terms of everything else down here, it all works the same as usual. So, there's that. However, this is another problem with the legs. In order for him to stand, you pretty much have to pose him in the right way so you can get him to stand. But if you, straighten his legs the normal way and you want him to stand, he's not going to stand because of the way that the feet are sculpted to the ball peg. And if you move him like this, he's not going to stand. He's just going to lean down. So the legs are really weird. And because of the way that they're sculpted too, if you're trying to do like action poses, yeah, he can do them, but there's this really weird curvature with the way that they sculpted the legs where it'll look good in some angles, it'll look bad in other angles. So if you're posing this guy for photography, do keep in mind with that as well. As for his arms, they do have their usual swivel up here, right? They do have the double joint, which it works better on this side. So there you go. And of course, he does have the swivel with the hands and the articulation with the hands as well. So pretty good. And as for his torso, there is movement, but my copy is very stiff. But he can go back. He can go forward. Up here, his waist does move. It's still very stiff, but everything should work if you heat it up. As for his head sculpt, he can look up. Pretty cool, so you can get him into flight poses. He can look down, so that's not bad. And he can turn his head side to side, all the way 360 if you want to, and tilt side to side. So he still has pretty good articulation in some areas, which is good, but not good in others. So it really depends on how you pose this figure and what kind of photos you want to do with him. If you are a figure photographer, like myself, who is an amateur figure photographer, because I'm still bad at this, but I try my best. So, yeah. All right. Well, there's Firestorm. And now let's bring in his other version that they've made before they gave us a regular Firestorm. We got Deathstorm. And I like to say, not bad. As much as this regular Firestorm does have certain things I dislike, there are certain things that I do like as well. And I don't want to say it's the worst figure that they've made. It's not. And when you put these two next to each other, you can clearly see like the differences, but you can also see the difficulties of making the Firestorm Matrix, right? Like, they can't do this kind of glowiness in paint form. It's hard. I'm not saying that it's not possible, but maybe if it's like a very expensive figure, then maybe they can pull it off. But like for a $30 figure, or what should be $20 in general, they work with what they had. So there's that. But that doesn't mean that I defend Collector Edition, okay? It doesn't mean I defend it. I've said in my previous videos, I still don't defend Collector Edition. So, yeah. But there you go. When you have these two next to each other, pretty cool, right? Very different, too, because one is alive and the other one is, well, he's a Black Lantern. So he's not really, well, he's alive, but in a different way. So pretty cool to see these two side by side now, having both of them. So that kind of completes this little corner of the collection right here. I got the Black Lantern version. Now I got the regular one. And if he ever does make another Firestorm figure, whether it's based off Injustice 2 or some other source material, I really hope they do better with the fire effects and just do better in general. But for this first Firestorm figure that we are getting, or maybe the last that we're ever going to get, I still think it came out okay, but it definitely needs a touch-up. And, yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed our look today at Firestorm, the first figure in the look into the Crisis on Infinite Earth set of videos that I've planned for the month. If you found this review informative, do give it a like. If you want to subscribe to my channel because you want to follow for more action figure reviews and whatnot, and all that other stuff that I do on this channel, you can subscribe. You don't have to. In the end of the day, I make these videos for fun. And with that said, take care, and I will see you in the next video.